Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
All right. Welcome back. Fit Nation. We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their story to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share some of your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you're a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and share how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you're a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and just share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or are embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps and also on our YouTube channel at @_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date with our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show. All right. Welcome back to a special midday show with the Misfit Nation. Today we have a good one. We have a U.S. Army combat veteran, served as combat medic with 1st of the 505th Parachute Infantry Brigade. He is married, father of 2 daughters, avid golfer, history and philosophy enthusiast. He's the last 17 years plus as a peer in the VA healthcare system, working currently as a supervisory peer specialist. He's a nationally respected speaker, and he's here today to join us to tell us about what he does, his story, and how he can connect with you, our fellow veterans out there. So welcome to the show, Jay Zimmerman.
Hey, good to be here.
Hey, Jay. Good to see you, Jay. Thanks for agreeing to do this and hang out with us today for a little bit of your time while you could be doing better things, I'm sure.
Thanks for having me.
So Jay, if you don't mind, I just gave a couple sentences about you there. Tell us a little more about you from as far back as you want to go, maybe some of your service and why you joined the Army and how you got to where we are now.
Oh, wow. I am born and raised in rural Appalachia. So kind of grew up here in the hills of Northeast Tennessee. Son of a U.S. Army veteran. My dad was an officer in the artillery. Mom and dad raised us here. I guess relatively typical upbringing. And how I wound up in the Army, I guess I'll just fast forward onto that because that was kind of a fluke. My dad, even though he was a veteran, really never spoke to me any at all about his service. I think the only way I really knew growing up that he was a veteran was I have some very, very vague memories of a tattered uniform hanging in his home office that I kind of watched deteriorate over time. And then just one day it was there and the next it was gone. It was just not something that he really talked about when I was young. His advice to us growing up, my sister and I, was at that point in time, it was like, just get a college degree, go to school. Doesn't matter what you get a degree in, go to school. But academics were really never my thing. Growing up, my goal was sports. I always grew up playing football, baseball. So my goal in school was as little as it takes to stay qualified to play ball. Just being honest and transparent with you. So I think I graduated high school with like a 2.2 GPA. I'm not proud of that, but you had to have a 2.0 to keep eligible for sports, and that was, again, all that mattered. I squeaked into college and learned there that, that surprisingly, they let you study things that you're interested in. And as you alluded to, I'd always really been interested in history. My dad's degree had been teacher, as far as like, that's what he went to school for. And I was like, well, man, I can study history and I love it. So I picked a bunch of history classes, kind of stumbled into some philosophy, found that real interesting, and spent my, 4 years in college really focusing on history and philosophy. And it wasn't until around December of my senior year of college that I realized, I say this jokingly, but I realized I don't care for kids enough to spend 30 years every day in a classroom full of teenagers, which was what I had set myself up for with a history degree, and I also came to the realization that I had a lot of college debt. And when your time in school ends, suddenly the banks come calling that those loans, they want you to start paying for them. And so on spring break of my senior year, I'm sitting there just like, man, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay off these debts? Because I don't want to be a teacher. I've wasted all this time. And, just got a wild hair, walked into a recruiting station, immediately looked at the recruiter, and I was like, man, look, you don't even have to sell me on anything. Just find me a job that I can do, and I will enlist. The only good thing that I did during my time in college was, again, being from rural Appalachia. We have a lot of areas that do not have paid fire departments, paid rescue squads. And so, another thing that we do for fun is, the minute you hit 17, 18, you start riding with the fire department and the rescue squad. I was never really enamored with the idea of running into burning buildings, but I really was drawn to the whole EMS side of things. So I would take classes on the side at the local community college and ride with the rescue squad, and I'd work my way through, and I'd obtain my paramedics license while I was in college. The recruiter heard that, and I mean, his ears kind of like perked up. He's like, "Oh, wait, you're a licensed paramedic?" And I was like, I am. And immediately he was like, "We have the job for you. Like, you could be an Army medic, and you're a licensed paramedic." He's like, "You would have it made, man. Like, you will probably get stationed in a hospital somewhere. You'll get to wear this nice white uniform." He just, tried to sell it really hard. And they told me about this program where if I was to go and I was to enlist for an extended period of time right off the bat, they would assume my debt. So it was like, in my head, all the stars were aligning. I said, "Tell me where to sign." That was on like a Tuesday. He said, come back tomorrow morning. We'll put you on a van, send you down to MEPS. If you pass your physical, you're in. So I made that decision in, probably less than 24 hours. The thing he didn't tell me was, I was in my head, I was like, well, if I'm a G.I. Joe kind of kid. I grew up on G.I. Joe every Saturday morning. I thought, if I'm a man, I at least want to do something cool. I want to jump out of airplanes. So that I added that stipulation to my contract. And one piece that he left out, and I'm still good friends with him today. I'm not the guy that hates my recruiter, but he neglected to tell me that the minute I signed up for airborne school, like the idea of being in whites and working in a hospital went out the window. I was probably going to wind up, in an infantry unit. And I jokingly laugh about the fact that the day I got out of the Army, I turned in those whites in the same plastic that they were issued to me in. Like they never left the back. So went in, signed the contract right off the bat for 6 years. Went through basic at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. The old man, because I finished out college. Went in through summer rush. I was there with a bunch of 17-year-olds that were doing basic between their junior and senior year of high school. So kind of stood out in a big way because, I was 21, almost 22. I was considered the old man at that time. The drill sergeants never let me forget that, that I was the old guy. From there, they let me get on a bus and travel down to Fort Benning for jump school. From there, I went to Fort Bragg and spent very, very little time actually at Fort Bragg. Spent a lot of time going lots of other places.
Yes.
So, but loved it.
What years were you in?
Went in let's see, this my date that I left was June 3rd of 99, and I wound up getting out in 05, December the 6th of 2005.
So you're definitely on your initial push into Afghanistan with a 5/5 probably.
Yes.
And of course, you got to see probably a trip to the other side of the desert in Iraq. So then hold up your jump boots. So.
Absolutely, because I can still remember it was an interesting transition to go from service member to veteran and still be one of the first groups to come out and show up at the VA and still be relatively young and walk in for care. I'm not knocking them, but like all the providers there, they hadn't had combat vets since Vietnam. Right. And with everything having really just gotten going, as far as with the latest wars, and I had been on the front end and got out fairly early. I walk in like, hey, I'm here for some care, and they're like, say what? It was kind of new for all our local providers, but it was a really interesting experience and good. It was all good.
Definitely. And you transitioned from there to work there.
Eventually, I spent the first 6 months, roughly 4 to 6 months that I got out. I had this dream or vision in my head. I loved being a medic, loved being a paramedic, and thought that I would do that until I was just too physically broken to do it. Landed a job with the local level 1 trauma center here in town, or actually a neighboring town, and worked the job for, again, somewhere between 4 and 6 months, and was, pulling 18-hour days. And it was actually a dad that was able to kind of recognize and point out some things to me that, we would get a call and I'd go jump on the bird and fly out to a motor vehicle accident or gunshot wounds and all those things. As much as I loved the work, it was all too close to home as far as the things I had just left, and was not real good for my health. So my dad, said, "Hey man, you've got to," he called his affectionately was boy. He'd go, "Hey boy, you got a job that's killing you. It might benefit you to go to the VA and just get your foot in the door. Just get your foot in the door at the VA. You'll be able to move around. So find something." And I took that advice, and my first job at the VA, I actually went to work in admin and hated every minute of it, because I just didn't feel like I was helping people, filling out paperwork and making sure that folks' licenses were up to date. Worked that for about 6 months and then really stumbled in doing your work.
So that's a big thing to stumble into, especially at the time you did. You mentioned earlier being the young veteran coming in from combat after so many years of those people, all the VA workers not really seeing any combat veterans since basically 1979-ish probably that really wanted to go in there. I mean, you had some probably during the desert. A lot of those guys are probably older guys anyway because they're on the end of their careers when they went to Desert Storm, got out. And now you're there to be kind of that in between, that liaison kind of to say, "Hey, look, I'm here to support you too, brother." And they're here, they're going to help you, but just you got to listen to and go with the course of work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The unique opportunity that I had was, the VA had this vision for, like veterans being able to help veterans. And so they kind of launched this idea of peer support. And I can remember, like I said, I was in admin, I was miserable in admin. And I think from the day I got there, I started applying for every job that opened up that I felt like I was qualified for. And I wasn't getting any bites, and I was getting a little discouraged. And then this job opened up. We had the old VA that I worked at, we had a residential treatment facility, and job posted. I read the job description, and it was pretty vague at that point in time. To me, I jokingly told my office mate, I was like, "Hey, man, this kind of reads like a secret shopper for guys that are in treatment, and they're about to transition out, get their apartments or move back out into the community, and they want a veteran who's kind of been through that process, make sure that they don't go to Best Buy and buy the most expensive TV, and they're getting good deals and they're interacting with their landlords, and just help them move back out into the community and get reestablished." It's like I just did that, right? I mean, I just came home 6-8 months ago. I can be a secret shopper. I can talk to people. I'm going to go apply. And I went and I applied. I remember just like it was yesterday, I walked back in, told my office mate, I was like, "Yeah, man, I blew that. Worst interview of my life." About a week later, the chief of mental health called, and he was like, "Hey, Jay, how would you like to come work for me?" And I was literally just floored, but I accepted the job and moved over. About 2 weeks later, I found out that really it wasn't kind of a secret shopper job. It was kind of a job of, helping people understand that, the VA wanted veterans who were learning or who had navigated like their own transition back and their own struggles, and how to help folks who, I really, on your intro there, I appreciated the intro to the podcast when you where it mentioned, like, if you feel like there's kind of like a darkness and no way out, I've been there. And that's a lot of what peer support does. We've been in that hole. There's like this analogy that I've used with veterans over the years. And it's not to knock any other profession, but it's like you're walking down the street and you hear a guy who's down in a hole and he's yelling for help. And the doc walks by and here's the guy in the hole, throws him a bottle of pills, and guys in the hole, he's like, I got a bottle of pills. What's this do for me? Chaplain walks by, here's the guy in the hole, tosses him a Bible. Guys in the hole, he's like, I got a bottle of pills. I got a Bible. What's this do for me? But then a vet walks by and he hears the guy down in the hole yelling like, man, I'm stuck in this hole. I need help. What do I do? And then the vet jumps down the hole. And then the other vet will go, why'd you jump down in this hole? Like, because, now we're both here. Now we're both stuck. And he's like, no. See, the difference is like I've been in this hole before and I know the way out. And for me, that's, again, it's not to knock the fact that we need docs, the fact that you may need a chaplain, the fact that you may need other support services. It's the fact that when you've been in the hole and you know the way out, that's what peers do. We jump down in the hole. We help people that have been there or that are still there, like I know the way out. Now, it may not be exactly the same for you, but maybe I can help because I have been there. And I think that's a really cool opportunity to have.
It's always it's better to talk to someone that's been down sort of the darkness road before, even if it's a different path, because you'll know, even if you know the way out, like getting out of Eastern Tennessee, there's multiple cat trails to get out of there. But if at least you know one of them, you can get them close to the light and back into the right way.
Yeah, absolutely.
What challenges have you had with the peer support group? Have you had any like kickback from veterans or even from the admin side? Have they kicked back the way you do it or anything like that?
I think I've been incredibly lucky. I've not had a lot of pushback from veterans and had nothing but support from administration. I think that initially, as we were propping up the profession of peer support, anytime you start something new, there's always kind of like this hesitation or caution, like we don't know what to expect. And I think that's understandable. And I think that there was that kind of air of caution when we first started because we didn't know what to expect. But when folks started seeing results of, one veteran talking to another veteran that perhaps other folks were struggling to reach, all those fears kind of went away. All that hesitation kind of went to the wayside pretty quickly. It actually turned into, like when we have somebody that we're having trouble reaching, it was like, hey, let's call one of the peers. And I can tell you that at my old VA, it actually got to the point where when more and more combat vets started rolling in, it was like, we got a guy here who may be able to like be of some assistance. Let's call Jay. Let's bring him down, because for probably the first 7 or 8 years, I was the only peer on my particular VA campus, and so I had the opportunity to work with old people before we expanded out and hired more folks in. So yeah, really no pushback. I've had the opportunity to do a lot of really cool things in this job. In helping other veterans, still, and those opportunities just continue to grow. I think back in, like roughly 2010 to 2012 timeframe, suicide prevention is an area that really has hit close to home for me. I've lost a in all honesty, lost my best friend that I served with to suicide in 2010. And it kind of became a personal cause for me that I was like, I need to talk to veterans real candidly about suicide prevention, firearms, things of that nature, which was, not something that a lot of peers were doing. The VA has been like nothing but supportive of that, and not just with me, but now we've got this opportunity here. The program that I'm fortunate enough to be a part of now, we've got almost 40 people that are making outreach calls to veterans who have had recent interactions with the Veterans Crisis Line. We've got peers reaching out to them and making weekly phone calls if the veteran's interested in service. And part of what we do is we check on safety. We talk to them about, how you feeling this week? Are you having thoughts of suicide? We talk to them about lethal means. And we have some of those really tough conversations. And I think that we're able to have those in ways that are different than any other VA provider, because they know we're all veterans. They know we've all been in similar situations, and we're coming to them from a place of like genuine concern of like, hey, I've been there. I get it. I understand. And it's just this genuine desire to help.
Definitely. And I think, like you said there, because it is veterans talking to veterans, it kind of gets that gap out. When you walk into most VAs, you don't know who the person is you're talking to. If they serve, if they have veteran tag on or something. Most doctors I've talked to have not served. So you kind of standoffish when you talk to them anyway, because you don't feel like they understand what you went through. So there's no sense wasting my time. But when you add your group in, they can say, I know they've worn them boots. I know they suffered through something to get to where they are now. They know what I've been through. I can sit and talk with them. I can have a coffee with them. I can sit on the phone with them for X amount of time and maybe get the help I need.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just in the couple of years that I've been in this program, I've seen, I have had the opportunity to see peers do some really amazing work, and really, shift the way a veteran is thinking over the course of 10 weeks. I can think of a couple of times where, some of the veteran peer, it's interchangeable because, to be a peer, you've got to be a veteran. So sometimes I get them confused. So I apologize for that. But, a couple of the peers that I supervise, again, we reach out typically with the group right now that we're reaching out to. They're veterans that have had an interaction with the crisis line within 7 to 15 days where an emergency dispatch has been done. That veteran may not have the best taste in their mouth for VA or VCL in that moment. And I've heard peer specialists, call and almost immediately, like I've heard veterans say, look, I'm done with you. I'm done with the VA. I'm done with VCL. I want nothing to do with you, because I called and, and the outcome was whatever it was. And I'm just fed up, and again, it goes back to the beauty of like that peer specialist being able to share, hey, I understand. Maybe I haven't been in that position, like where I had an interaction that didn't go like I would have wanted it to. But that's why I'm reaching out to you. And the veteran on the other end of the line, because they know they're talking to another veteran, like, yeah, really? Well, tell me about that. And our peer specialists share. The veteran opens up and is willing to share and listen and have an exchange and build some rapport. And I have watched that veteran who on call number one is like ready to walk away from the VA, ready to walk away from services, who's openly saying like, I'll never call VCL again. I don't care. I will just sit here and be done. 10 weeks later, because of the work of that peer specialist, and I truly believe that connection has been made veteran to veteran. It's really cool to hear that veteran who was all upset at the first, ready to walk away, when we're trying to wrap up services at the end of 10 or 12 weeks, because sometimes we'll extend them.
All right, Misfit Nation, we have partnered with another great company, Magic Mind. When we wake up in the morning, we need that energy. The Misfit Nation runs on high energy. We go all day. We start our office at 6 a.m. The Misfit Nation doesn't turn out until about 8 p.m. at night. So this little bit of juice right here from Magic Mind will get you going with no shakes, no after effects, 4 hours of constant energy. So go to magicmind.com, mention the Misfit Nation, and get yours.
They'll say to that peer specialist, say along the lines of, if you were to like keep my phone number or accidentally call me again, I wouldn't be upset, because I've really gotten a lot out of the last 10 weeks of you calling every week and of our conversations. And I really, I'm sorry for the way I was on that first phone call, but I was just really upset. And that's human nature, man. Like, we have a bad outcome. It's understandable to be upset, but now they've had 10 weeks to talk to another veteran and to process all that, and then maybe share other things, that have been weighing on them with another veteran for like 10 or 12 weeks. And now they're in such a different place that they're willing to stay engaged with VA, with VA services, with VCL. To me, that is the power of what we bring to the table as peer specialists and as veterans who have been through that stuff before.
I have a question from the audience right now and put it up on the screen for you. I'll read it as well. Jake Holland has a friend who needs to come in but won't because of fear of losing all of his firearms in the event he is diagnosed with PTS. What can he tell him to ease this fear?
Wow. Well, this is obviously a concern that I have heard time and time again over the years. And I can tell you this. I have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, and I can't speak to where the individual lives, and I don't want to speak to certain laws. What I tell veterans where I live is this: like in my, and again, I'm from Tennessee. I have, full transparency, I have concealed carry permit. I'm diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. And it's very important to know the laws of your state. So, for instance, in Tennessee, what it says is if I come in and I go in for voluntary treatment, then I'm not going to lose my rights. Post-traumatic stress disorder doesn't automatically cost me my rights to my firearms. On the other hand, if I am sitting here and I know that I'm struggling, and somebody comes here and they get me and they haul me into the emergency room and they say, we have to keep you because you're a risk to yourself or to somebody else. Well, and unfortunately, my lack of action to stay well could potentially cost me my rights. So for me, I always tell the veterans that I work with, one, know the laws of your state, know the laws of where you're at. And most of the time it's better to be proactive and seek the help. But it's also, like if your friend is struggling, I would have a conversation with them about like how they store that firearm. I mentioned earlier, I lost my best friend that I served with to suicide by firearm. What drove me into having open and frank conversations about this was, just to be honest, I'd been working in mental health at that point in time for probably 6 years, and I had all those quasi-clinical conversations, like asking future-oriented questions so that I felt like he was, thinking about his future. And I forgot that I was talking to my best friend that I had served with, that I had deployed with. And I knew he had a pistol in his house because it was a tense issue between him and his wife. And I just never thought to say, hey, Vic, like, I know you're struggling with some stuff, man. Where's your pistol? What are you doing with it right now? And I kicked myself in the rear end for probably a good 2 years because I was like, how do you forget you're just talking to your buddy? And how do you forget you're just talking to a guy that you went through, trying not to say anything inappropriate, but like you went through all that crap with, that you can have those conversations with. And I said, from that point on, I'm just going to always ask. I'm going to always ask that question. So now it's one of those things I encourage people, ask your friends, like, if you're struggling, like, where are your firearms? How are you storing them? Are you storing them in a way where you can put a little time and distance between you and your firearm while you're struggling? Because we know that most people who complete a suicide, it's an impulsive action. There's relatively little time between the thought and the action. So we want to put a little time and space. And those are things that we can do like without going to the doctor. Now, I would encourage him to, like, again, find out what the laws are in his area. Seek treatment if it's something that he feels like he needs to do. But in the meantime, like, let's put a little time and space. Like, if your buddy says, I'm struggling, and it's applicable, or the law allows, like, talk to him about, maybe it's time to hold it for him, if that's okay in his state. Like in Tennessee, I can call my buddy D and be like, hey man, like, I'm struggling. I need you to come, clean out the gun safe. And it would all be good. But again, that's just here in Tennessee. I don't know where the individual's at, and I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Right. That's great advice. And Jake, thanks for clarifying all that. And thanks for what you do. I had a friend, he went to the darkness, I think it was April and March this year. And before the day it happened, he really didn't say anything, but he posted at 4:00 in the morning, today I joined the 20. I'm sure you've seen this post on Facebook. But it shocked me because, you think, you always tell people you'll be there for them, and it's my fault now. He didn't call me, because he could have called me and I could have stopped him. But I think at that point, like you just said, it's an impulsive thing at that point. I think that was a planned post. It was a scheduled post after having time to think about it. And it was already done by that point. His post got out, so no one can stop him. I think he set it in action and let it happen. And so I didn't dwell for a while. I mean, for a few days it bothered me, and then I kind of got back to my wits and realized there was nothing I could have done for him at that point. He was already committed to what he was doing.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for your loss, and I hate to hear that.
Yeah, it was a shocker. I'm pretty sure you've seen his post on Facebook or all over every social media platform after he posted. It was shared on every veterans group.
And to be honest with you, for my own sanity and well-being, I have very, very little to know social media.
That helps out.
Indeed, it does.
Jay, how does other veterans get involved? Maybe if they want to become a peer, how do they go through the process to maybe become a peer and help you guys out?
Well, so the VA, we hire folks in, again, to be a peer. Obviously, you have to be a veteran. You can either be certified through your state. Most every state has a state certifying body for peer specialist or peer recovery specialist. There is also, you can look on, like you say, jobs for what are called peer support apprentices. If we hire in someone as a peer support apprentice, typically the VA has a couple of agencies that we contract with, where if you're hired as an apprentice, then you go through one of those two agencies for your certification training. And then it's a career ladder position. Over the years, like after you get trained, you just work up in the levels of complexity with the cases that you are assigned to handle, or the veterans that you work with, the levels of supervision that you'll be required to have. And really, the biggest thing is you have to have lived experience in recovery from either a mental health or a substance use and abuse disorder. Because a lot of what we do is, again, we share from our lived experience, about, again, what is it that we do to stay well? Because, and we look for folks with like about 2 years of recovery time, because, it's difficult. I'm sure you've seen it in the community. Somebody will get on their feet for about 90 days and they're feeling great. Then, we want to come out and we want to save the world. It's that ability to maintain that is oftentimes the hardest. I mean, I can tell you, there have been many times that, I myself have found like, man, it's hard to maintain, even sometimes 15, 16 years into it. If I take my eye off of the things that I've learned, it's like little things that you learn to do early on. If you get complacent, like with any other thing you do, if you get complacent, you can quickly fall back into old habits, and they are some pretty powerful and wicked things. And some of them are simple. My 19-year-old daughter, she gives me a hard time. She's like, Dad, why do you still get up every morning at 5, when you're off work? And I'm like, because, Peanut, it's my routine. Like, I don't care if I'm on vacation. I'm up every morning at 5, hit the showers, do the same things, try to keep that routine set, because for me, I have found that like that routine is super important to me, so that I can be in a good headspace, so that I can be a better employee, a better husband, a better father, a better member of my community, so that I'm able to hopefully be just an overall better person, and better equipped to help folks when they need it. When I find myself slipping on those things, and again, some of them sound like I tell people about them and they're like, for real? Because it might be something as simple as, I'll find myself sitting there sometimes 6 o'clock at night, look at my wife, and I'm like, man, something just feels off today, and she's like, well, what do you think it is? I don't know. 10 minutes later, I sit back, I rub my neck, and I'm like, because obviously I don't have a lot of face to shave, but I'm like, I forgot to shave my neck this morning. And I will get up at 6:30 in the evening and I'll go back to the back and I'll shave my neck because I'm like, I forgot that. That's part of my routine. You know, those things just become so important. And we've got to remember to keep our eyes focused on the things that keep us well so that we don't drift back into those things that can quickly lead us down those dark paths. You know, and those are the kinds of things that peers bring to the table. You know, I mean, not saying that everybody needs to shave their neck or their head every day, you know, but you know, you're going to find what works for you, right? And what we're here to do is just say, like, you know, I'm going to be like, hey man, hey Rich, what works for you? And what works for you? How do we help you build those habits? How do we help to ingrain those skills? I'll share with you, you share with me, and together we'll come together and we'll make a plan that'll work for you. And it might work for somebody else if they take a bit of yours and a bit of mine and a bit of theirs. And then we set them on their own path. And as they succeed, man, it's really awesome to see them succeed. You know, I mean, and again, to me, that's just the amazing thing that peers do. I mean, and I'm blessed. I'm blessed that, and I think all peers, you know, are blessed because, you know, there was a point in time, and I can say in my life that all the things that are my strengths today, I had doctors telling me at one point in time, like, these are the things that are going to put you on disability for the rest of your life. Like, you know, I'm barely 30 and there are people telling me, like, the best thing you can do is go apply for disability. The best thing you can do, like, you're going to struggle. And, you know, fortunately, there was a crusty old Vietnam vet who was a social worker at the VA, and he had seen me around. And in that moment, even though he wasn't a peer, he talked to me veteran to veteran, and he was like, I see more in you than what they're telling you. You have you have a decision to make. You can either buy into what they're telling you, or you can get up and you can prove everybody wrong. But I see more in you than what they see in you. You have potential. And I think sometimes, like, that's all we need to hear. And I heard that from another veteran who shared with me that, like, he had heard the same thing. He had heard someone tell him he had potential. And in that moment, that was what I needed to hear. And now I get to share that with veterans every day. And that is a gift.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. How do veterans that maybe had not gone through the crisis line, they know they need some help, how do they go get some help with peers?
So unfortunately, right now, the center that I work for, we are only an outbound call center. You know, so the ability for them to call us is not an option right now. And I don't want to put out information that is incorrect. Peer services are ever expanding at local VAs. You know, they can inquire at their local VAs about peer services, but I can't guarantee that it's going to be available. So I don't want somebody to call up and be like, hey, this guy said, you know, whatever, like, this guy said we could get it there. And we will also want people to know that veterans don't have to be at a point of crisis to call the VCL. Be a resource before they're in crisis, so they can call us before they're in crisis. You know, so if they call, you know, VCL before they're in a point of crisis, they can do that. Again, right now our criteria might be a little bit different as far as getting to a peer, but they can call 988 and press 1 They can chat or text with Crisis Line. And we are expanding our pool of how we're hold veterans through the Peer Support Outreach Center, or what we call PSOC. And I'm super optimistic that as we grow, we'll be able to expand our reach and help more veterans.
Awesome. And usually at the end of my shows, I ask my guests to give 3 tips and tricks to the veteran community or first responder community who's on mostly my list, just how they can be better in their life and move forward. So I'm throwing that to you now.
So how it can be? Well, I mean, and I would say one way is don't be afraid to reach out for help to somebody if you're feeling like you need help, whatever, even if it's just somebody to talk to, because I think that's the one thing that we as veterans tend to struggle with, is to reach out and ask for help. Because, whether we see it as a sign of weakness or not something we've been programmed to do. So reach out for help. Engage in your community. Find community resources. Community is key. And find other veterans and veteran organizations in your community, and when I say community, I don't always necessarily mean your physical community. Now, granted, I think that's great. I'm very active in my physical community, but I'm also going to say, try to, when all else fails, there's a huge veteran community online.
Yes.
And reach out to somebody in that veteran community online, because there's always folks out there willing to help. Find the community that best serves you, because my experience is, when we have that sense of community, and always have somebody to turn to, whether it's somebody that you can chat with, somebody that you can text, you can call anytime, day or night, somebody you can drive to their house, somebody that you can pick up and call and say, it's been a hard day at work, you want to go grab a bite to eat, just shoot the breeze. A bonus tip, add 988 to your phone, just so that it's already there and you can hit one button and dial it, and then all you got to do is press 1. Those would be some tips that I would have. You heard me throw out a name earlier. I said I could call my buddy D. I got a couple of friends that I've made in the area. We're all, I guess I'm a little guilty of running with a bunch of veterans. All my friends are, my circle, we're all combat vets, and we all make it a point to get together, once or twice a month at the least. But when we have a hard time, we're all married, we've all got wives, but it's kind of when we're really struggling with something, we have a group chat that's just the veterans, and we'll shoot out a message. And it doesn't matter if it's 2 PM or 3 AM. We'll hit each other up. And I think that is the biggest thing I can say is remember that, you're not alone. There is a community of veterans out there, and we need to find them, and you need to know that you have support.
Definitely. Those are great tips right there. Community is huge, and we preach that here all the time. You're only as good as your village. Like you said, the inner circle has to be tight and like-minded and on the same wavelength. So that's awesome tips right there. Jay, thanks again for taking some of your time here on my favorite holiday of the year, Halloween, to hang out with us and give us some great advice and share your story with the Misfit Nation.
Hey, Rick, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right, you have a good day, Jay.
Hey, you too, man.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all of our past episodes and get some of that great Misfit Nation gear. As always, Be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling. Because we are Fit Nation. Fit Nation. Fit Nation.